committee together? Thank you. First off, as we open the meeting here, you do have the minutes in front of you. Please review those minutes from the April 15th meeting. Mr. Ford, there we
Make
go.
a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion does carry to make those minutes a permanent part of our record. All right, next up, you will see your trustees' cash balance from the April, this is dated as of April 30th there. Take a few minutes, look through. Any discussion on the trial balance? If not, we'll move on to our financial summaries. You should see that we're in the 10th month, 83% of the way through the budget. Of course, right before you start there, we do have the comparisons. Ms. Amy's putting it for us from each of the funds. Comparisons are running very similar to that of the past. Always good to see a little bit lower in some areas, especially in the expensive side of things.
Mr. Chairman, looks like the revenues in the urban services is way down.
I noticed that. I wonder if they were behind.
There is a $679,000 grant that has not been touched yet, so it's skewing into it.
Did we hear that? There's a grant that's skewing that number. $700,000 in that fund would really skew that number. What's it? Am I missing something there? He's way under. We'll get there in a minute, but. Oh, right there. I was trying to look at the 116 as well for that same situation, I'm not finding the, any. They're just all coming in a little under. Across the board in that 116. Should be at 80%. Any of those paid at the end of your tax?
Business tax
I was-
normally hits in May.
Business tax is one, but that's as much as $8,000 of it, but not a huge percentage. Oh, Mr. Ford,
I'm over on the first page of revenues.
on the 101,
I guess it is, yeah.
yes, sir, line item,
I was looking at 44,110. We
40
budgeted 40,000. And I guess it's year to date, we took in $252,890. And that's interest, I'm sure.
yes,
But
sir.
the other one I looked at down there was other local revenues, and I don't have any idea what that is, Amy. What is our other local revenue? 44,990.
So 44,990, that includes your park pavilions, your pool parties, any reservations for the community center and police reports.
A little bit of everything.
Even though that one's kind of high, it's still a small number. It's $7,000 over its budgeted amount. The one that's certainly strong there that you brought out, that 44,110, we've been paying attention to that one all year in the facet that we've noticed it is greatly increasing due to, if you'll look back to the trial balance there, you will see where there's CDs sitting on 5% that were sitting on 1% a year ago or things of that nature. So it makes a large difference in that total. However, Mr. Ford, I think if we get the bottom line of revenues on the 101 is coming in at 80%, whereas there's $210,000 over in that 44,110. So that means through here some areas, as we can see, and that's what I was just noticing in the 116. Most of your areas in the 116 are coming in short right now in revenue side of things. And for the majority of our revenues, the vast majority of it should have already been come through. I mean, the vast majority of ours is property tax. Now, sales tax runs a month behind, so we know that would be expected to be off by 1 month in that side there. But as you're looking at those pieces, when you're looking at large line items like the one you just mentioned that are up that far, budgeted at 40,000 and currently it's came in at 252,000, nearly 253. And the bottom line is just at 80%, not over. It's something to be attentive to, that our revenues aren't seeming to come in as strong as we would hope. And you're getting a much fuller picture at this time. There's not a lot that will come in late. Are there any other items there? Now, I think one of those that's showing up a whole lot is that 46,390, which is budgeted at 601,000 and it's only in at 15,000 currently. That's gonna skew numbers as well pretty heavily. That, as you'll notice, includes the park grant. That's money that's gotta go out. That's coming in, but it hasn't, I guess, deposited into this account at that time yet. Yes, sir. Are there any other areas throughout that you see a concern in? Has the litter program not come in?
The budget 44,000, taking in 8,600.
That's the little grant, isn't it?
20.
46, 430, the litter program, that's the litter grant, right? Is that just not, when does it come in?
They have been backed up for months. I'm actually still waiting on April of last year, April, May, and June of last year. So they're backed up in their own system.
It's actually a whole lot of debit that I've really become.
Oh.
Health and welfare grant. I'm seeing it's one, it's a grant, rather than a grant.
That's got the park in it. That's what I was mentioning just a second ago. It's got the park. Yes, sir. So that's one of those hidden numbers that we've talked about in these budgets that are, grant monies that are gonna come in, when we apply for that money to come through. So it hadn't hit the docket yet. It's kind of that problem. So it does skew the bottom line for sure. Anything else in the 101? However, it's also good, as I mentioned, the bottom line of the 101, it's strong to see the 62% outtake on that expenses. So that is always beneficial. You might notice there the park grant as well, you're saying, well, we spent this amount out. That's one of those reimbursable grants. So the money didn't sit in our pocket beforehand. Somebody else got to collect interest on that money. Any further questions in the 101? You will notice, and there were some questions on the last budget meetings about the sheriff's budget pieces there. Here are your sheriff outtakes, the breakdown that we were asked for in terms, looks very much like the EMS breakdown. You can see this is the 101 sheriff pay pieces. I think the next page, yeah, there we go. This page only. Any discussions there? That makes no sense. We'll get there in a minute. It did not.
Do we have any idea how much the sheriff department's budget is? You got so many items, I looked at it today trying to put something together, I never did get it.
Mr. Ford, I think we received that on for tonight, I'll answer this way. I don't want to go into that discussion right here. We're talking sheriff's budgeting. That's tomorrow, Wednesday night of this week, not Tuesday night. This Wednesday night of this week. I think Wednesday or Thursday, one of those nights this week, I've looked ahead and they're starting to run together. But as we're looking at that piece, to answer it this way, we received an email on that question that stated that it was roughly about 50% of the 101 budget, if I remember that email correctly, about a week ago. 40-something% of the 101 budget is the sheriff's department. I'll bring that email back up on that night. Now, when you say that, we still have to realize that sheriff is all the departments within the sheriff's department. All right, moving us further, you're looking at your 111. I just asked a question there. I've noticed on this one, the 43-107 residential waste collection charge, it does come in a month late as well. So it's 1 month behind. So your sales tax is always a month behind. Any questions on the 101 revenue side? If not, moving to the 101 expenditures. 111, I'm sorry. Phew, one of these days, y'all. I'll get everything back together. Certainly coming in at 49.7% is great to see on expenses side of things. And as you'll see on tonight's budget, we don't have many cleanup items yet. Hopefully, we don't get bombarded or some of those get accidentally not on the table. Who knows, right? No, I'm just kidding. 116, I had asked a minute ago about the 116. Miss Amy's been sitting over here going through and finding some numbers. If you will change the, on the total revenues, the center column, the 655,300, that number should read 1,078,800. Correct. Should read 1,078,800, and that percentage, I'm not that good on my head.
98.
I was about to say, it's pretty close to 100, but 98.15. Did everybody get those corrections? The line item, ARPA contributions was not into that total function. That 423,500 was not adding into that total function. So the revenues there on the 116 have come in just as we would hope. Strong. Expenditures, right in on par with where we would want them to be. A little high on the other charges of expenditures, which, that's another one of those line items that some things get thrown into.
What are they actually selling now? Cardboard?
On the recycle side of things,
I
they-
noticed look pretty good bit.
they have cardboard and metal, I think are the two main pieces. I meant to ask Mr. Slee, but they had an overage of a lot of cardboard they'd been holding back. He told us maybe 2 years ago, just seeing if a few pennies went up, they had room to store it. I think they've moved a lot of that in the last, year, through. All right, nothing else in the 116, moving to the 118 ambulance. Revenues at 96.8%, always great to see. Expenditures not running too far either. Keep in mind on those expenditures, as we mentioned here, there are 4 positions that have been unfilled for the year. So that always is going to show, that there's always pieces behind it. I say this to students all the time and in my conversations, inputs and outputs. We're looking at the outputs, what inputs got us here. It's always important to look at behind those pieces. You'll turn to the back next page, you'll see those inputs, what got us to those expenses. Any questions here? I will state it's been nice not to have to add additional funds into overtime continually here. If no questions there, we'll move onward. 121 is pass-through money. Core Civic Fund. $122 county drug, not completely pass-through, but pretty close. Where you're gonna see your fines, forfeitures, their sales. I think, is the last sale in here yet?
I'm sorry.
Is the last sale from the county
I actually don't see these funds.
understood? It definitely appears not to be spent. 127, your American Rescue, don't forget that there's that ARPA funding that's sitting. Part of it anyway, that's sitting available. I think there's just under 500,000 left in that ARPA. About 10% left, or a little less. 128, American Rescue, again, that's the rest of that total. I think your numbers are gonna look a little skewed here because there's still a few vehicles, possibly the sheriff's department vehicles that have not, I think they've been ordered but are not in yet. So you sometimes don't look at those bottom numbers thinking they're there. We can get a total, but I'm pretty sure it's just under 500,000 that's available. Don't forget it's drawing interest. $151 debt service. Mr. Ford, you mentioned the interest, part of that interest, if you remember last year on those two of those CDs, that were new money, pieces, the interest got placed into the revenue side here of the debt service. I think they're showing here. And that 44,110 includes interest from CD investments. Yes, sir. Contribution.
Just subsidy.
Subsidized money. Subsidies coming in. Expenditures, fortunately, as we've seen in that one's a lot. Remember, these are in one loan at this time. They've been consolidated to one, which is a lot easier to plan the budgets around.
They're all put together.
Yes, sir. All on one. Moving 171. This is the fund we have the money, the 300,000 that comes in annually from Core Civic is moving into that 171. It's a fund that is seeming to grow a bit, but don't forget we have are starting to see a cost, as the jail is telling us, for movement of prisoners from there, especially court costs. By that, I mean the cost to get inmates to and from court. Don't want to misspeak. 131, if no questions. Highway fund. Mr. Scruggs always runs a very strong budget. You will see we've got an amendment on here tonight for the highway department, but he runs a tight budget. 141 general purpose schools. We see the revenue side, and revenues have come in on target, above target, as you'll see. And don't forget, local sales tax is running 1 month behind. I always like to keep my eyes around the sales tax on the school, because that allows me to have a pretty good idea what the total sales tax to the county is as well. 50/50, if I believe is right at what that is.
Or 47.53.
Hardly 50/50s,
47.53. It's easier to think 50/50 on that side of things and know where you are. Any discussion there? If not, our next, I would entertain a motion to accept the financial summaries and the trustees' cash balance as with the amended few changes we made. One of those were in the 116. I didn't see any other we needed to catch.
I'll make
Mr. Gregory?
a motion to approve.
Has a motion to approve that way. Mr. Ford with a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? It is favorable there to, by this committee to move that one on as as was given to us. Your next piece, we have budget amendments. These are straight out of each one's fund, just transfers. Correct items here in this case for, as you'll see a list on 13103. Request hereby made for the highway, from the highway to fund department to move some monies around. Looks like the majority is moving into motor vehicles. I'm sure there's a purchase needed to be made or some sort. I haven't asked. They run a tight budget and usually are well on it. I have a motion by Mr. Gregory to approve. I have a second by Mr. Cothran. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion does carry. 141, maintenance repair to building. I did not ask Dr. Satterfield what these were, but we see $17,000 for some maintenance pieces and movement. They're kind of vague, I agree.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve. Ms. Overman, a second by Mr. Ford. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. We have on here any FY 25 budget pieces. I know we've been out for a break there due to some circumstances within this town and this government. Is there anything prior to getting started? I don't want to, I wish I had, we don't really have a plan to move forward with those tonight, is what I'm saying. But is there anything that you need, that you can think of as you've gone back and looked through or missed? Is there anything you want to bring back to the table on this discussion now? Anything you want more information on starting tomorrow night? And if you don't have to answer those right now, you're welcome to email and say, hey, can we get this or this? And we can certainly work on those pieces. But it's a good time to get our mind back on that track of where we're headed. Tomorrow night, we have a few of the funds, different funds coming together tomorrow night. We still have EMS to finish. I know the questions, I think, as Miss Amy has tried to take what we've asked thus far, those questions have, I believe, been answered in email. So if there's anything you want brought out in those, we can certainly bring those to the table. I ask you to try, I know we've been a little break of it, look back over, get your mind back wrapped around this week. We do need to go back and finish EMS tomorrow, and then we have a couple of funds, a couple of different departments coming up tomorrow night. Then continuing on into Wednesday and Thursday. I might ask at this time, we currently, with the schedule we've backed up, do not have an in-case date set up. Would you rather, at this time, I asked Miss Amy, we can't schedule one for, in case we go over for Friday night, we're past the deadline. I missed that deadline. I'll just take that. I would have had to think about that this morning. Would the body, if we have to, anyone have any objection to scheduling a 5:45 next Tuesday night before the before the commission meeting, county court night meeting, in case we have to finish anything up? Not saying that that's got to get on that docket. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm gonna ask Mr. Beller here in a minute to kind of go over some of those pieces if we have to, but I'm not saying to get it on that night's budget, on that night's agenda. Everybody clear with what I'm saying? I do not foresee us getting a budget on this agenda. We have a timetable. There's still time to work through. Things can still work out. Is everybody clear there? It just won't be on the May agenda. So that's not what I'm trying to get at. But I would like to have gotten through the budget somewhere here in May as far as we can. So if we need to schedule anything else or any worries that you want to come back to, we can do. Would that Monday night or Tuesday night at 5:45 work for everybody? Wednesday this week? We did put one for that.
Urban Services, 111, and then it's wrap up under.
Perfect. Had missed that. Thank you. Perfect. Is everybody clear with that now then? I had missed that we had, in the rescheduling, had missed that night. I didn't have it laying in front of me. It's laying in my truck seat. So we do have a wrap-up night. Never mind. See, we were thinking ahead, but forgot we were thinking ahead. Any questions otherwise? Here, 6 p.m. each of those nights. Where did we miss this? Would y'all be in favor of moving Wednesday, the 29th to 5:45 on Tuesday, then 28th? We still have time to make that announcement. Is that okay with everybody? I completely understand. If we could do it on the on that 28th at 5:45, I would be more in favor. Let's do the 5:45 on the, we'll reschedule that one and change that date to 5:45 on the 28th. Yes, sir. So we'll be, the only night that'll be off is that 28th. I will send out a text every night, I promise. That is a guarantee. 6 p.m. here every night except for the last night, which will be the night of the commission meeting at 5:45 for finish up. All right. Anything else anyone wants to bring up? We're under other now. Anybody? Public comment? Anybody in the public? I appreciate commissioners being here. Anybody else want to, any public comment, anything you want to bring out? If not, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Got a motion and a second. Motion by Mr. Gregory, second by Mr. Ford. All those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? You are adjourned. Thank you for your meeting.